Welcome to another judge presentation for the upcoming legal challenge. And today with me is Vlad from the beautiful or not so beautiful, depending on your aesthetical point of view, city of St. Petersburg. Do you like the city?
Oh yes, I do. It's my city of my origin, and when you grow up in a certain environment, in positive, at least thanks to my family, day-to-day circumstances, you tend to love it.
Okay. I know some people love it, some people are disappointed because they expect the medieval city that has those like layers of construction.
Yeah.
If you go to Nuremberg, for example, and then you go to St. Petersburg, and it seems like everything was built in one period of time and then in another. And there's like, hard to breathe. But the canals are beautiful, the seaside, you can take a yacht and just, look at the city from the other side. So, you're a part of which law firm and how big it is?
I'm a part of law firm Dentons of the office in St. Petersburg. Dentons actually claims to be the biggest law firm in the world if we take Dentons in generally.
Okay, so you win the competition. Like, we've been talking to different lawyers and I was trying to figure out how big. So how big is Dentons globally? Is it what, 10,000 people?
Well, I believe more than 10,000 people worldwide, but probably why Dentons claims that it's the biggest one is because of its amount of offices in different countries and different cities. Dentons so far follows the expensive strategy of mergers with other national law firms, and that's why there is probably some ground to this. But originally, Dentons part in Russia were part of Salons.
Okay. So hold on a second. So first of all, how many offices do you guys have in Russia?
2 offices, one in Moscow, one in St. Petersburg.
And why do you have 2 offices in like 2 cities which are what, like an hour flight away?
Well, originally, there was a strong economic reason behind that, because St. Petersburg economy was, striving a certain period of time. And I would say that, to the best of my knowledge of history of my firm, St. Petersburg office was one of the first foreign law firms or international law firms offices in Russia in general. So it goes back to the very early 90s, if not the late 80s, to the extent possible. And at certain period of time, these offices in St. Petersburg and Moscow were competing on the same ground. Right now, historically, it formed that certain practices are accumulated in St. Petersburg, while others in Moscow.
So you're a part of the, what do you call, technology group or entertainment group? How do you define it?
Well, generally, it's intellectual property, informational technologies, and telecommunications group, but it embraces digital entertainment practice, so to say.
So some Russian people probably will say that's a good decision because Moscow is about transactions and money, and St. Petersburg, of course, intellectual property. Like, I don't know if you guys are aware, there is a competition between Moscow and St. Petersburg, and whenever something smart happens, then this is St. Petersburg, and whenever someone gets rich, that's Moscow. At least that's the cliche, the way it goes.
Well, it sounds that this cliche describes in the best way possible the division between our practices.
And you joined Dentons when it was Dentons, or it was still Salons?
It was last year when it was Salons, so it was 2014, the end of 2013 and the very beginning of 2014.
Okay, and then you became a Dentons. Okay, great. And how big is your office in St. Petersburg in terms of the headcount?
Well, it's about, I would say, 50 to 60 fee earners, more or less so. So I would say that based on local standards is quite big, or maybe, well, I'm sure that we have one of the biggest, if not the biggest, ITIP practices at the scale of St. Petersburg, which is basically a small city as compared to many big cities.
Okay, so to dig a bit into your practice, most of the people in your office would be Russian lawyers? Or I remember back in the days, you had like offices of, I don't know, White & Case, that are staffed with American lawyers, Canadian lawyers, so not Russian lawyers, which is kind of unusual. I mean, you talk to a Polish law firm and they wouldn't tell you, oh yeah, we've got some German lawyers here and American lawyers and a couple of Polish dudes. So like your law firm, is it made right now, what, 100% Russian lawyers or a mix?
Well, 100% or 99% of Russian lawyers, I would say. There are some guys who have qualifications outside Russia, but the core is Russian lawyers.
And your clients, are they generally international companies doing business in Russia? So that'll be Kim and Chang style. Or is it more of a local companies doing business locally, or even local companies doing business globally or transactionally with others?
There is a combination of both. In my personal practice, I work mostly with foreign clients, with international companies, but a lot of income is generated, frankly speaking, by local companies for our firm. And definitely, yes, we also do have some local companies who do business internationally, and major part of this work relates to things like GDPR in our practice, for instance.
Okay, so it's a balanced basket. All right. And you personally, what is your background? Have you been in litigation? Like, when you talk intellectual property, do you mean transactions? Do you mean licensing agreements? Do you mean structuring the business of the company to be compliant? Or do you actually go to court and win stuff or lose? I don't know.
That's a good question. So, to be fair, I'm mostly a lawyer who is focused on consulting, and at the same time, I'll have also strong academic background and currently teaching at St. Petersburg University things related to digital like digital law, as they say now. There is no digital law in academic sense, of course, but still. And I do mostly consulting in the area of intellectual property in terms of copyright, privacy, internet regulation, age ratings. And on a regular basis, I don't go to courts, but I have some courts in my track record. I have some good wins representing some internet companies against Russian users, which has probably been on a dark side of the story. There are some cases where my colleagues and myself represented internet companies of the West in litigation with Russian state authorities. And here I cannot brag about any major successes currently.
Yeah, I was about to think, like, should I ask you about the challenges of the Russian legal system? Should I not? It's a bit like talking to someone from, well, let's say, Turkey, and you feel that there is this kind of interplay between the state being more and more authoritarian in the sense that, like, dictating how things should be done, and then still there is the competition in the courts, as long as the matter is not political. And I would imagine most intellectual property is not really political, so it's not.
That's why I like it so much. It's probably one of the areas which is not infused by extra legal factors to a great extent, and when you do that, you are in a very good position in terms of comfort with what you have been taught in law school.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And for games industry, like, what is your involvement in the games industry in the sense that when did you start, or is this a hobby? Have you been playing before you started practicing law in this area? And how big it is? Because I know that a lot of Russian games companies, they have business offices outside of the country. I don't know if this is still the case, but you would look at the Cyprus
absolutely,
and it's like everything is there, and even from the bigger to the smaller guys.
All right. Yeah. Speaking about the my perception of how industry landscape is in Russia, I believe that there is a fair amount of some research and development arts studios that are hired by external companies. There is one or maybe two huge internet giants, local internet giants, who accumulate and acquire some teams for game production, and there is a number or better to say, there has been a number of brilliant studios who indeed migrated outside for many reasons, including business ones and accessibility to Western and international market. As for myself, I'm personally rather a gamer who became a video game lawyer because fortunately my father was an electronic engineer, and that's why from about 1980 7, I would say. I was hardcore ZX Spectrum gamer and avid programmer, and so it started. Then at certain point, when I was practicing law with my previous law firm, doing mostly corporate law and international commercial arbitration, that was quite exciting area of practice, I all of a sudden stumbled upon some articles by my managing partner at that time, and also by, frankly speaking, Sean Kane, who is here on the board as well. And I was absolutely excited, like we say in Russian memes, what was it ever possible to combine passion to video games with legal practice? And that's how I started. So my first official appearance in well, first it was a report in academic environment was in 2011. In Frankfurt, and since then I have been practicing in different areas of law relevant to the industry. And when I joined Dentons, I joined with the full focus on video game industry in general. So I would say that since then I had a lot of experience of dealing with local video game companies, with international video game companies, and it was very, very exciting. But well, one of the main disappointments, let me say, in this area is when you start reading about that theoretically beforehand, you dream about cases like transactions with virtual property for billions of dollars and things like that. And ultimately, you end up in clarifying some concepts from very, very low-level subordinate legislative act on like telecommunications control and technical licensing requirements, but it's still exciting in this industry.
Yeah, I mean, there is the drama. So I guess if you work at, I don't know, CD Projekt Red, you've got enough drama right now. You've got the class action lawsuits, you've got lawsuits for advertising, you've got the relationship with the platform owners. So suddenly it all like rains down, and then probably once you figure it out, you can take some breathing space. So in terms of the headcount, Poland reports that they've got 10,000 fully employed people in the games industry 2 years ago. And I think just St. Petersburg should have at least a couple of thousand people. You have Wargaming in St. Petersburg. You've got Saber, which got acquired by Embracer, which is pretty huge. And then you get a number of platforms there and some teams that are working on the mobile titles, well, you know, at 50 people, 100 people, 150 people. So there should be, let's say, 2,000. So overall, probably Russia has more people than Poland making games. But the question is, how is the legal scene? Is there a community? Is there like a go-to group of people that specialize in transactions, or not really?
Well, that's very complex issue because you know, from a long period of time there were attempts to create some kind of more or less centralized or decentralized but unified community, and I believe you were the part of that process.
That wasn't legal. That wasn't legal. That was mostly like business. Yeah.
Yeah, so there are a few lawyers like myself who are more or less visible specifically in video games industry. One of the new guys appeared like 2 years ago from other local national law firm, not a big one, but they took a very brilliant approach to marketing. So I respect them for that because now they are well known in video game law. There is also a company actually established by some of my former students, which I'm proud of, who are focused on video game law, and I hope that part of my lectures actually inspired them to do that. But unfortunately, my impression is that there is no like association of lawyers dealing with that in a formal or more or less informal sense. There attempts to somehow unite lawyers in more or less the same way like Games Industry Law Summit does started maybe last last year, in my personal impression, and we are absolutely far from making anything like already exists.
Do you think there is do you think the issue could be that most of the transactions happen outside of Russia, in the sense that if you have a Russian studio selling itself to a Russian publisher, this wouldn't happen under the Russian law. This would be an offshore transaction based on, let's say, British law, maybe with Stockholm arbitration. So you don't really go to the Russia-based lawyer for this deal, but you reach out and then you sort of guarantee. Could this be the case?
Yes, this could be the case, actually, because for many companies, still foreign law, as opposed to Russian law, is still more favorable for many reasons that existed before. And in Russia, basically, the work relates mostly to like business processes consulting, to litigation, compliance, privacy, regulatory advice, etc. Something where lawyers either hold commercial secrets or are involved in litigation against each other, basically. So there is probably less incentive to unite in this kind of environment.
And how knowledgeable are the courts about intellectual property in general? If you go to court and it's about, let's say, a book license, I'm not even talking about the games license, but a film license, a book license, would you say they struggle, or there's the new generation that understands it?
I can say that the new generation. Well, first of all, I'm an optimist inherently. Okay. Yeah, maybe sometimes too optimistic. But I would say that generally, the new generation is slowly appearing. So usually, already there are, in some courts at least, there are judges who are trusted specifically with intellectual property or technology cases, and at least in several courts in major cities, there are a few judges who know about it. But you need to be lucky, actually, not to get to any other judge and go to this one. Sometimes there is also a good experience with ordinary judges who are not specialized with that, and I'm probably a very happy man, because in my personal experience of litigation, my first process was very fair and open. The judge just said, so you are representing an internet company, the claimant is the guy who also has a claim concerning some very technological issue. I don't understand anything, so please, we have enough time, explain you and you, what do you think and how it works. And it was really interesting and very good approach, I would say. I didn't expect to see that.
Well, that's a great approach. I mean, that's probably the dream scenario for many. Otherwise, the judge will just pretend to understand, do some analogy, and just carry it out. When you look at the teams that compete in the legal challenge, what are you looking at? What do you think is the best in like allowing them to succeed in the games industry?
Oh, yeah, well, it's a very tricky question, because there are a few things that I'm trying to look at once. Well, first of all, of course, law is about rational argumentation. So when I read papers, I first of all seek clarity of thought and clarity of language. There is one citation which I like very much, is from Ludwig Wittgenstein, a philosopher, who said that clarity of language indicates clarity of mind. So when you see clear, transparent, and very ordered argumentation, this already helps to understand. And there are also things like some minor aesthetic cameos that can make even legal text look beautiful. This also indicates a good taste, that also indicates more broad views in a good sense, I would say. So everything you think is very good about written text, that's what I look. Also, of course, but it is a precondition, I would say, that people should understand the basics of what are games, how they work, and what are typical business processes inside video game development.
Okay, so understanding the medium, understanding the context, and then being a structured, reasonable lawyer who can dig through the text and so on. What do you think could be the risks or the failures when people will argue a case in front of you? I mean, judges are different. Some judges will stop the speaker and say, hold on a second, I have a question. Some will explore a question if they feel the team is making a mistake and they just want to confirm that this is a mistake, and they're going to lead you until you fall over. Some will actually, I don't know, try to clarify a strong argument and say, why is that? So your own personal position, what are you, like, how do you see yourself as a judge? What is your strategy to the teams? The teams will be watching this video, so this is kind of a way to get them less nervous during the hearing. Like, you know, you're a nice looking guy with a big smile. I wouldn't expect anything, you know, harsh from you. But is this the facade? Is this like internally, or this hardcore Russian guy who had a hard life, and so you're not gonna get these guys an easy way out? No.
Oh, it depends on the context, actually, because in real court, when I'm representing interests of my client, I rather tend to become a hardcore Russian guy. I may look soft, but still, there is another purpose. When it comes to students competition, I love to be in company of other judges because I have natural sympathies for anyone who participates in this event. And I know what I'm saying. I'm a teacher at university for more than 10 years already, and I'm struggling with being extremely soft with assessment. So that's what I will try to do during Games Challenge. I will try to be less soft in my assessment, but usually this doesn't end up well. I'm still quite soft. So I more tend to follow some kind of Socrates method. So I will do my best to listen until the teams finish their presentation and not making interruptions. I hope I will hold with this during the discussions, but then I may ask questions because in law I'm most interested and I'm most concerned with the hierarchy of values, let's say. So I would probably be interested why this argument is made, why you use this principle, and why you believe this principle is worthy, for example. So what general purpose is behind that? This may sound too philosophical or too theoretical, but I believe in things like rational argumentation based on hierarchy of values. So that's what I would like to hear.
I think you actually sound like a couple of other judges, which is unexpected for me. I did not expect you guys will lay out the philosophy so much into this competition, but I think you're on the same wave as the other judges as to what they're looking at in people. Quite a few judges mentioned that they're looking for passion, not for theatrical passion. No one has to cry or love, but more for believing in what you're doing, being into this. So you've come so far, you've pleaded the case, you wrote the memorandum, now you're in front of the judge panel. Now, don't hold anything back, go for it, and so on. And I think some judges were saying that they don't really like when people not answer their questions.
Oh, yeah.
For example, what do you think about Putin? And then you tell me, oh, well, St. Petersburg is a really beautiful city. And I was like, okay. So what about Putin? So, I think that we had some cases in the previous challenges where people tried to walk around the answer because they didn't like the answer or they didn't know the answer. And the judges were like, okay, well, that's as good as shooting yourself in the leg. But outside of that, I don't know. So we have a team from Poland. We have a team out of Serbia. We have a team out of UK, and then we have a mixed team out of France, Spain, and the UK. We had some Russian teams before. I think not this year among the strongest ones, but we did have some. And I think one of the teams was in the finals a couple of years ago. And I recently saw that one of the lawyers just got a victory in front of the European Court of Human Rights. So that was amazing, that it's the same lawyer who was pleading a games industry case succeeded, and I think it was on behalf of some medically challenged person in Russia seeking help and not getting it, and the details escape my mind, but I know that it's been really applauded in the community. So that's the kind of caliber that is really impressive coming out of Russia. So the young generation, what do you think? you teach them?
Well, the young generation gives a lot of promises. People often say that young generation is worse than the previous generation. They read less. They I don't know, whatever. Whatever we hear for the last at least 2,500 years, starting from ancient Greece and Rome, where people complain the same. But I believe in the young generation because as compared to my own generation, if I speak about my students and my fellows and myself, the young generation is extremely well educated. They have a lot of motivation. They receive a lot of knowledge from different sources. They are more critical. So I'm fond of the young generation I know, I would say. They are more active than I and my colleagues were in our times, I would say. The fact that they don't read often paper books doesn't mean that it's a bad thing, because media change, and before paper books there were different things, and people complained that people started to read paper books instead of hearing oral myth or something like that.
Well, I still remember people complaining about people playing chess and saying that kids playing chess is a bad thing. It's going to get them distracted from learning how to be proper people. But do you feel there's motivation in the young generation in Russia?
I believe so. I believe so. If I speak about students that I communicate on a day-to-day basis, I see this motivation, and I see much more motivation that I had at their age. So I'm pretty surprised, actually, all the time about that.
And how big is the law school? Like, how many students graduate each year? Just to understand how many lawyers are coming out to the market every year.
Well, I'm really bad at numbers and I don't have statistics ready, but let me calculate. So we have each year we have about 200 or 300 lawyers, and most of them graduate. Well, not all of them, because it's quite strict right now to study, but if we take a few hundred lawyers actually, just from our university, yeah.
And in terms of the legal landscape, to finish off the understanding of the law firms, you work at a global law firm. And some other people from Russia who are part of the community of the summit, they also represent bigger firms. Like generally, if you look into Russia or Ukraine, that's multinational law firms. Is there a reason for this? Are there any huge national law firms? Is there a Russian law firm that's 100% Russian and that has, I don't know, 500 lawyers or 1,000 lawyers?
Oh, 500 and 1,000 is too much, I think, for our market and for local law firms. But there are local law firms that have more than 100 or maybe even 200 lawyers, just maybe one or two of them. And I would say that historically, like in CIS countries, international law firms established there because there were already existing business models which were not customary for people who just left Soviet Union in historical landscape, and that was objective. But during recent years, I would say that there is a trend that people leave for international foreign law firms to establish their own law firms. They're merging different national law firms, and they're already quite strong. So it depends on the clients. And I would say that objectively, firms like Dentons feel comfortable in the market of big clients, but in the market of small clients and medium, especially medium local clients, we already are giving up some position, because economical models of huge law firms are based on huge bills. And this is not something that businessmen want to see here. Most of the time. So
if the transaction value is huge, then you're not really concerned about the budget. You're more of who's the best guy or girl to take, to look into this. That's it. And if you're a medium-sized studio, or if you're a game studio that has, I don't know, the first major agreement, second major agreement, then they'll be very concerned about the billing, and they will okay, how do I not overpay? And then maybe later on they'll think, okay, that was cheap, but they'll be very cautious. I remember, I think we both share this experience of talking to successful studios, and the studios saying, no lawyers, no way, like I'm out of this room. And
Absolutely.
And then and then they have some problems, and then they see some risks, and then it's like, okay, what was the name of the guy again? And then going back into but that's global. That's the same in France, same in Spain, the same pretty much everywhere, except maybe for Germany, but outside of that. Great. So every judge panel will have one American judge, and everyone else is coming from different countries, so we give a balanced panel. It's going to be 3 judges in the semifinals and 5 judges in the finals. It's going to be digital, so we are more or less flexible on time. We will experience this lack of communication for you and the other judges, that you will not be able to, I don't know, you guys have to invent a way of somehow expressing yourself to the other judges, so that they're like, hey, I have an issue. Same for the participants. We ask them not to watch the second semifinal, not to get a upper hand on the team. Outside of that, we'll do the coin toss at the start of the day to determine who takes which side. They are expected to prepare both positions. And then if we can, we will flip them going into the finals. And if not, then we're going to toss the coin and see how that goes. And then all of them are invited to the next real-life event. So regardless, we consider that they all have already won by qualifying. And then they will benefit by meeting you in the real-life environment and actually, say, hey, so you're not so scary as, there on the picture. So, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see how that goes. So thanks a lot for your time spent grading the papers. You're unique in the sense that you combine the academic background as well as the practical background. So probably, as you say, it makes you more kind as a judge, because purely practical lawyers will look at the paper and say, I would fire an associate like this. And coming from academia, you're like, actually, for 100 students, that's like top 5. So,
yeah. Absolutely.
So we have to, but I think so for the teams, you're a very happy judge for the competition for sure. We drop the weakest score always for each of the teams, just to avoid similar situations where someone is really angry that the expectations are not met in anything. And then we'll see. Maybe a country will claim, last year it was the UK, and the year before it was Ukraine, and the year before it was kind of a Belarus through UK going to Cyprus. So it's a mix, so we'll see how it goes this year. But thank you so much, and we'll see you in 3 weeks.
Sergey, thank you so much too. I'm really honored actually to be a part of this panel of judges where there are people who I have admired long before that I have become a lawyer in this area. So this I see this as one of the pinnacles of my career, I would say. So it's really exciting, and thank you and the team.
I think they're all excited to have a lawyer who's in the same industry but representing Russia as a huge market that's not very transparent, that has this language barrier that is really, it's hard to, you have to know someone who speaks your language to understand, even to get the bearing of this. And your perspective also gives a kind of a real life perspective to the whole thing. Sure, you can be a British lawyer or judge and you rely on hundreds of years of tradition. But we put you in, let's say, a Russian deal, and we see how you feel when there is a realpolitik versus this, and you have to find this solution that's gonna that will survive being challenged, maybe sometimes unfairly. So that's a different skill. So thanks again, and now I'm gonna show you all the wonderful law firms and game studios that help us make the Summit and Legal Challenge happen. And we'll see you in the next video. Thank you and bye-bye.